Alright, so I haven't been recording my Valleague rounds, so after I had a little mishap with the King of the Course, I decided I'd drop my not gonna happen to me attitude and actually start recording these Valleague rounds just in case I had another issue. So at the end of the season, we were doing a little chatting in the Valleague channel, and of course my week 3 to 4 change in play kind of came up, which is honestly not surprising to me. It was a pretty drastic change in scores. Granted, week 3 was really bad for me, and it actually kind of inspired me to really start the grind when it comes to getting better at the game. So we'll go ahead and watch these rounds. I'll try to keep my talking to a minimum and just let them play, give a little bit of commentary. But I will pause from time to time just to throw in a few little things. But I'll try to keep it relatively short. So here we go. Who's Got 20 is the first round. I will say I tried to record all 4, and on Highlanders Ridge, when I was putting out on hole 9, like after the little timer had been running, I used game bar. It said video recording not working, and I lost the entire recording. So I don't have round 2. But here we go. First hole, Crow's Nest 7. Who's Got 20? Stock wind, so this is a stock line. Chevron on the little hole icon. I put a tiny bit of ante. I'm looking to kind of throw it up here somewhere. I like using roll PD so it doesn't go flying up the hill. Usually you get like a putt. Excuse me. So easy eagle starting off. So here we go on the what we got? Cahoe Backwoods, looking at hole 4. I'm going to just lay up with a glide PD. Threw it up in the air a little bit, let it make sure that it got right. I want to have a good look at this gap. So I would say a big difference in my early season play and late season play is just being way more intentional with what shots I'm throwing. I'd put that nose down, and immediately it swayed down, so I waited for it to come back up. You're also going to notice a lot of waiting on sways. So I made a comment in the channel that this will probably be the only time I do this, because I imagine a lot of you will find watching this pretty frustrating because it's kind of slow paced. I'm not trying to blaze through these rounds. I am intentional on a lot of these shots. Most of these shots are stock plays, and I don't have to sit there and try to imagine what the disc is going to do because I'm used to throwing it. But anytime I'm throwing a shot that I haven't thrown a billion times, I will pause and visualize, what that disc is going to do, or if the wind is a little different than what I'm used to. So that's just the stock turnover play with the no wind or light wind situation. So pretty easy stuff. Yet another easy win. This is not the hardest Who's Got 20 run I've encountered for sure. I'm going to skip Sampo, throwing it down low. Doesn't really matter where it goes. Just skip anywhere up here on this hill is going to chase it down to the bottom. Should be a pretty easy throw in. But yeah, I don't know how many people who will be watching this would have seen any of my other videos, but I spent a lot of time just trying to figure out exactly how the game works. And while I ended up with a great understanding of the game, I never really applied it in a practical way. I got into like the challenge seasons and stuff afterwards, and put a lot of my time and energy into that. But I never really spent a lot of time playing, which is kind of weird. Here on Lakeside 4, I like going forehand now since these water skip discs have come out. I would occasionally hit that boulder, trying to stuff it into the hill, because I wasn't about trying to throw the big roll rive, 80 feet past the basket. I'd really like to be able to put it in like this, and pretty stock shot there. I'm just making sure that I get the height right so that the turn is what I'm looking for out of that. The wind's always, 2 or less on that hole, so pretty easy. So herring 9. I like going over the top of these left trees here. I find it to be pretty consistent. Little slide left, bottom chevron, tip on that dead tree limb there. I'm going a little bit of hyzer. You'll notice that I let that sway sit there for a while. So even on drives, I will look at the sway. I'm not paying such close attention. I want to pause it a minute so I can talk on this concept for a minute. This is going to be kind of a focus of one of the things I do. I'm not really caring so much of how left and right is going to influence the shot when it comes to like a drive. But I'm thinking, with this wind, we can back it up a little bit. Okay, so with the wind being slight head right to left, what's the miss going to be? And with a slightly understable disc, even aiming it up in the air, which will take some of the turn off of it, I feel like the disc is more likely to miss left than it would be to miss right. So I feel like my aim point is solid. If the disc wobbles straight, it's going to be a good shot. But if the disc wobbles to the right, it'll turn a little more. This wind is going to kind of make my misses shift to the left. So again, left and right I'm not too concerned about. It's holding turn longer than I want it to that I'm worried about. So you'll notice when I throw this, I'm more than likely, I don't really pay that close attention to see if I did this or not, but sways down. I'm probably going to wait for it to go back up and then go up of where it started, just to kind of, see, when you throw it up in the air, it takes some of that turn off and it makes sure that this is going to go right. So when I do stuff like that, I'm just making sure that I don't stack mistakes on top of each other. Because if the disc wobbles left and the sway is down and the sway is left, then that disc might go too far left and actually catch a tree. And sometimes it will immediately just go down and left. And then you'll catch a random bad wobble left and you're in trouble. And then people will just be like, man, this line always works. Why doesn't it work? If you're intentional, at least about the things you can control, you'll find that stuff happens a lot less often. So now we'll look here. The headwinds got me back a little further, so I pull out and I'm just visualizing how that shot is going to come out. For me to get it to that distance, it would have been too low. I didn't want to mess with those trees, so I disc up, aim up, throw in a high hyzer. Got a headwind. So again, the miss here is going to be overturning it. Wait for that thing to sway up. I'm making sure that it's going to fade, giving it a better chance to miss that direction than the bad direction. So big focus of what you'll see is me kind of taking my time on some of these and then not. This was one wind. I didn't practice this hole, so I drag it down to where I feel like I normally aim, and I don't know why. I probably should have reset this. I feel like I ended up rushing this shot, but that thing sways down and left, and exactly all those things I've been talking about, I didn't do on this one. So I should have drug it back up until that little red circle on my aim thing was back to level, and then adjusted my nose down so I can get a better feel, visualize what the turn's going to look like. But that was just kind of a dumb mental error, so I kind of took a second to make sure I didn't make two bad mistakes in a row. Right now I'm just thinking this is a spot I'm not in ever, so is this going to be the right distance? Is it going to fade the right amount? I'm visualizing what this is going to do. I convinced myself that there's no other option that would be a better shot and throw it. In my mind, that was going to fade a little sooner, so I'm kind of pinned up a little close to this rock. Slide right and aim up to adjust to where I think the putt will make it to the basket. Can't see my putter, so I slide a little left. I feel like I can see enough of the basket to where I can just move the putter back over, make the putt. So I was right. Putt's in. So I'm just losing one stroke there, not the end of the world. So, lakeside 9 with as long as the wind's not a 3 and pushing right to left, I pretty much always go for this island. So I just nose it down to where it'll straighten this waterscape sample out. And then on this one, I pay really close attention to this way because I really don't want this going left. You'll notice as this skips up here, left of that tree, there's a rock, and some asshole put like a ramp right in front of it. You hit that, you're toast. So that ended up a little more left than I wanted, and it left me far enough away to where if I really wanted to make this, I'd probably need to throw glide PD at it. Glide PDs go about 400 feet on the flat ground with no wind assist, so if I missed the chains, which is pretty high probability at this range it might be wet, so I still go roll, and I'm pretty sure max range on a roll PD is 315 if I'm trying to make it, so there's no chance this is going in without a helping wind. But I still kind of took my time to try to put it online, just in case it was maybe downhill, or I don't know. It couldn't hurt to put it online just in case it went a little further than I thought it would. And then here we are to the last hole, KP2. I am just throwing my chevrons up by clicking whatever disc is there and aiming at that cloud first. Then I'm switching to my disc. You'll notice I throw this shot a lot faster because I can't really see anything to make adjustments. So I just put it where I thought the angle was right. I was a little worried about overturning it, so I kind of wussed out. Ended up going left of the tree that I tried to miss instead of right. But it worked out. Anytime you have a putt on this hole, it's great. Throwing up at a basket, I tend to get more spit outs, or hit the cage. So I don't have 20, but I have 19, and I'm pretty happy with that one. So we'll go on, skip round 2. We'll go on to round 3, which is the random globetrotter round. Starting off crow's nest 4. I like to slide left. I see a lot of people slide right. I like to slide left because the goal for me is to get this thing further right, because left is the mist that sends you down the mountain. So there's a very specific spot on that tee box I tried to get just in frame to make sure that I have a consistent height. Based on the wind, I will do angle. I do skips, the water skip Sampo, because I don't like the roll disc. I don't want a weird cut roll. Sometimes I'll cut roll off the mountain, which kind of sucks. So those are things that just make that shot more successful for me. All I'm trying to do on Enzo 5 is just get something down there with a look. This is a kind of a tough wind to really get one down there close. I feel like no wind, I'm just ripping this thing down there. But I did practice this hole with the wind being so strong, and it did get to the water, so I backed off the power a little bit. Looking pretty good. I guess that weird cut roll adds another 20 feet or so to this throw, and it just puts it at a very awkward range for me. This is a Svea range for me, but with this huge tailwind and the downhill, I just felt a little more comfortable throwing the Challenger at it. I feel like I could just try to guess the power instead of using my normal method, and I just gave it a little too much. So it's kind of annoying not to get that, but I'm not going to be super angry considering that cut roll. So here we go. Downtown 5, my normal aim point, that little light that my second chevron's putting on, I'd put in the middle of that chevron. Since this wind is, light 2 wind, went up about half a chevron, try to get it to fade right. You'll see how much that turned. That was definitely a left wobble. This normally would not go that far out left, so I catch that bush, take some distance off. So now I'm annoyed looking at 544 into this light headwind. So I just kind of take a second to think. I think I'm looking at the mini metro trying to think how much real estate I have, like how much water do I actually have to carry. And I convinced myself that I think Light Glide will clear that water on a line at the pin. Now I'm visualizing what this wind's going to do to this. And now I'm double checking in my brain, is this going to clear? I convinced myself and I just let it rip. I know I need to put a little turn on it to make sure that it gets there, and it just happens to be a really good line, so cannot be upset with that. Going up the hill, I got a headwind, so I adjust down for that, and then I add distance for mine. That's how I put. As I was doing that, that swayed outrageous, so took my eye off the screen to make sure I set my power correctly, and it swayed to a point where I lost track of it, so I just reset. I don't do that too often, but I think it's important on those putts, for me at least. My goal is to get them right over the cage. I hate spit outs. So I aim in a way that that disc is going to barely clear the cage. And then when I throw, I make sure that that sway has not gone down at all. If I throw on a down sway, I hit the cage, I miss the putt. So it's kind of second nature to make sure that I at least throw it on the upswing. But When you start getting out to 70, 80, 90 feet, I want to make sure that it hasn't gone too far right or left either, because I don't want to miss the chains. So as far as beginning of the season to middle end of the season, this is the hole I'm pausing it here because I feel like this is a, kind of a good, it's kind of a good example of how my play style has changed a lot. A lot of influence from Mark, a little bit of influence from Kanai. So with this wind right here, I know I see a lot of people throwing their sapphires. I carry a PD. I don't have a sapphire, but PD hooks up more. You really have to nose it down. It gets a lot of turn. It's just doesn't shape this shot very well. So I go distance driver here in this wind, and I would have a week 1 too. The difference between week 1 and now is I probably would have just grabbed Rive. It's overstable. I want to make sure that this thing doesn't turn too much. I would have tried to get my nose angle just right, and then I would have sent it. And if I got it right, it would have drifted quite a bit out to the right, and then hooked up, fading back at an angle towards that island. The shot, I think, would be that best suits this would be this paradigm. Now, what I'd be worried about doing is overturning it with this wind. So I'm going to power down, and it doesn't turn that much. So this thing stays on a string. When you power it down like that, it's just as accurate as a sapphire would be. Slides up here nicely. It's kind of a weird kick behind this tree. So now the play here is going to be turnover. I'm going to pause it again. This is another example of how my play style has changed. I think week 1 Steve would, in this position, would nose down with an understable disc and try to get that angle, nose angle just right to where I could do a relatively straight pull, not have that much angle, have the disc do the work, get it over to the right, which sounds great, but you have to get that so precise to get the disc to go where you need it to go. So there's not a very big margin for error. If it starts to turn, there's no guarantee that if you overturn it a little bit, it's not going to come back. It's not going to be able to overcome that amount of turn. You don't turn it quite enough, you're skipping left into the trees. It just has to be so precise. So what I think the better play is take your overstable disc, aim it up into the air. You know this thing is going to go left, right? So put a big ante on it. You can gauge where it's going to start based off of the angle on the disc while you're setting it. Throw it over to the right side of the fairway and just let it fade back. It's going to do that every time. It's going to be way more consistent. So it gets me back in position for an easy birdie. And I truly do think that week 1 Stever probably would have parred this hole or maybe even bogeyed it, depending on if I got that angle just right on that Rive. But as this, I have essentially a tap in, so it's just some of the things I'm thinking about now that I never used to think about. So here we go on Northern Breeze 4. This used to be a hole I felt like I had a leg up on people, but people kind of figured it out now. But Sampo's a straight shooter when you throw it down tunnels. Don't like this wind on a backhand, so I'm going forehand. I don't care if I catch any cabbage here, it's still going to skip somewhere down there relatively close. I just want to keep it in between the tree lines. I always feel most confident with a Sampo doing that, so that is what I did. A lot of sway there. I lost it again, so I reset. Got a better hold on that one. Got a little left on me, but it is the right height. So I'm cruising. Northern Lights 9. I like the backhand play. This wind will just help turn this PD over there, so for me it's pretty stock. I'm just going to throw it down there on the base of that tree. Let it rip. Not too intentional with the sway there because this gap with the fairway is pretty big. So I'm just throwing it down there. It's going to leave me with a 50-60 footer. Wind's not a huge issue on this one. Another pretty simple hole. Alright, so on to 7. Which, based on how many people I've sent this clip to, I remember putting on that hole, and then it's this great hole that I played. So for me, I throw a disc that goes 300 feet on this hole, and it's pretty stable. So when I aim it this low, it will force turn on it. With this wind blowing left to right, it will drift it to the right. So I am accounting for that by aiming left side of the basket. That disc did not drift to the right. That's because I got the worst possible wobble to the left. Airballing, leaving me 90 feet. Challenger, relatively stable at 90 feet. Aiming at the right side of the band. I should have put it off basket. Throw it on a left sway. I was only looking at the height. Compounding mistakes. So, what did I learn from that? I probably should have thrown a stay, so it just doesn't fade. But whatever. I parred the easiest freaking hole in the game. But here we go. Pioneer Bay 9. I did practice this wind, so I already had an aim point. I got an angle. Make sure this way is not stupid. My goal is a high percentage birdie play. I am not interested in trying to throw some circus shot for eagle. So skip Sampo. I know it's going to be very consistent. I'm crashing that tree. I'm trying to skip up somewhere near where the drop zone is. Unfortunately, pretty familiar with the shot from this drop zone. So this is a good yardage for core. Put a little landing on it. Make sure that that wind doesn't carry it into somewhere where I don't want it to go. Easy birdie. So, one hole left on this one. Okay, we got Highlanders Ridge 7. I really wanted to practice this hole. I got super bored trying to get this wind. I think I may have practiced it in a 3. But this is the disc I normally throw anyways. There's quite a bit of tailwind whenever you factor the fact that it's a 4. So I end up backing off it a little bit to make sure it doesn't go too far. I don't want to throw a roll disc. I don't want a weird cut roll. I mean, that worked out about as good as I could have hoped for. So, easy birdie there. Little 10 under with a dumb par. And on to the last round. Going Nokia back 9. Nokia back 9 has always been one of my favorite real world tracks. I've played these holes a lot. Pretty comfortable with them. Calm wind here. The tree that it starts your chevron on, I like to put the base of it in the very middle of the middle chevron. I threw that on a high sway to make sure it didn't overturn because I'm petrified of going out of bounds long. Instead, it wobbled left and it put me over here. With a better wobble on a calm wind, sometimes I'll go up to the mouth of that and I'll sneak within challenger range. And I will go for it with a challenger. I will not go for it with a core. I don't want to go long, so I just want to lay up. And I get lazy on these layups sometimes because in this game it really doesn't matter how close you are. But when you have an obstacle like this, you should at least try to aim away from the obstacle. No harm, no foul in this one, but just kind of a observation I made. So, and this is the hole I normally throw glide PD. It's wind coming tail and left. I'd have to account for that wind. I'd have to swing it out so wide with that PD that I would be putting those light poles in place. So I disked down Sampo, which I can throw straighter and leave me a little longer throw in. But I would rather have this every time than a shorter one. The shorter one for birdie half the time and par the other half. So I'll take the longer birdie look every time. I learned my lesson and I put that sucker off the basket. Because again, I found myself in that tweener range. But I wasn't about to try switching that up mid Valleague round. So take my birdie, on I go. Looking at what I got, Beast 12. I am just going to throw nose down, a little bit of turn. I'm not trying to do anything fancy. I want this thing up there past that tree, and I'm going to throw it in with a challenger. It got left on me and clipped the tree, left me in core range, which is fine. I feel like in challenger range, I might be like 60-70%. Here, it's probably closer to 50-50 if I get my sway right, which it's up left now. Went back down right. That's perfect on the sway. Left wobble. Can't do nothing about that. That's a better result than kicking off the cage down behind those trees. So Easy birdie. Moving on. Come on. See, even I get bored watching myself. Okay, so 13, no wind. This is as stock as it comes. I like the chevron base of that tree, tiny bit of ante to get it through that gap, make sure it didn't sway somewhere stupid. Came out good, finally. Got the skip. This is going to be an easy eagle. So here, putting my aim point down, setting my power to where I know it's going to go just over the cage. It wobbled up. I would be good to throw it now. I don't know why I'm not. I guess I didn't want to go too high and spit out, so I waited for it to go back down to where it started. That is exactly where I want putts to go in. I know that might look sketchy to some people, but that is where I'm aiming. I hate spit outs. So slide right, nose down, ante. Sway goes up, sway goes up. I want that sway down, sway goes down. I throw. Why do I want the sway down? Where's the miss? Miss is right. If you get that roll disc on the right and it cut rolls, it goes behind that bush, it's a par. No thank you. So I'm trying to keep that sucker left. I would rather have a 100-foot throwing attempt from that bush that's wide open, slightly uphill, than a guaranteed par through that other one. Alright, sorry my recording cut off, so I'm starting over again. Back at the tee here on 15. This is a stock shot for me. I'm going base of that tree. Little help left or right, so I'm going full disc, but I'm going to let the sway come back up. I don't want this overturning. That is exactly what I drew up. Get the skip, which means it's going to go about pin high. And the reason I love this line is if it dud skips, it still stuffs into the bank and gets back in bounds on the other side, leaving you maybe 60, 70 feet. So, barring a crazy wind, 1-2 winds pretty much any direction, that line's good. Slight adjustments on your angle. I'm going glide. Let me get back to full screen here. So I'm going glide. Glide PD here instead of the skip Sampo. The angle that I have to put the nose down on this to keep it from getting too far left out of bounds. Puts that skip Sampo landing on the path, and it just makes the skip suck. On a calm wind, I'd be throwing a stag here, so I disc up because I got that headwind. I didn't get as close, and I still have to deal with it with the second shot. I'm looking at it thinking I need more disc. Visualize that shot, and I just didn't see it going far enough, so I'm going up 2 discs from what I normally throw. The miss is right. I put a little ante to make sure that this thing doesn't go too far right. Obviously, that's good. Going on to 17. Long, straight hole. I like to throw a long, straight disc. This fairway slopes right. I like the disc to go, the fairway slopes left. I want the disc coming in from the right. I'm going forehand. This wind is perfect because it will hold it over. I don't have to force it over, and I can just throw laser beam at the basket. So easy peasy. Kind of sticky on the grass, but it's going to leave me 64 feet. That should not be an issue. I want to account for the elevation. I want to account for the slight lift from that wind. I want to put my power where I want it. That wobbled up. I'm going to let it wobble back down. I'm going to make the putt. So, last hole of Valleague Season 3, Week 7, Nokia 18. I aim at the top of that evergreen in the distance every single time. If the wind is pushing right, I go DD3. It's not, so I go Rive. I am looking to put it in the middle of this fairway. Doesn't need to get up there. Nothing fancy. Inbounds is what I want. That play any wobble stays in bounds. Spea. Up in the air. Put it close. Tap it in. So that's all I've done. Man, I took what I learned from months of screwing around and decided to take that and actually play with it and apply it and practice and play. I think I had 120 or so games under my belt, made, and then I had that bad week, and I started playing a bunch more multiplayer, and I got up to 900. And sorry, a little story time to end here. Got to 900, and I was feeling better about my game because I was doing the grind. Maybe got up to close to 175, 180 games. And I made some comment in the team chat, with the Valleague team chat, and I was just like, hey, it'd be cool. Maybe I should put like a big push on for 1,000. And Big Win comes in and makes fun of me and goes, "There ain't no fucking way you're making 1,000." he goes, "I will sell a disc with my name on it if you make 1,000." So I countered and I said, "Keep your discs. If I make 1,000, you have to bag a Sampo for 30 days. And every day you need to go to the global Discord and make a post about how amazing it is." And he accepted. 6 days later, I was 1,000 rated. So I think I ended up playing somewhere. I hit 1,000 rating, maybe 450 games or something like that. So played close to 300 games in those 6 days, which is a crap ton for me. But in doing so, solidified a lot of lines, got a lot better. And then the rest is history, man. Then was week 4. And I was a different player. So, yeah, no hacks, no special secrets, just smarter play. Those first 100 and whatever games I played in multiplayer, get to champion, whatever, that was just fun. I was just winging discs around and trying to see how many discs I could throw in. And then I changed it to being more disciplined because obviously I had some issues keeping the disc in play week 3. So there it is. Mystery solved. I will probably never make another video like this again because I can't imagine watching me wait for the screen to sway back to where it's supposed to be is very exciting. But there she is. I'll try to post a few more videos. We'll see. I don't know. Later.